Good morning.
Good morning.
We're actually having a really nice weekend. Wonderful.
Yes.
Shh, don't anyone know, they'll take it away. Let's begin with our opening words this morning. They are number 437 in the back of the hymnal, and we will be reading responsibly.
431.
Let us worship with our eyes and ears and fingertips.
Let us love the world through heart and mind and body.
We feed our eyes upon the mystery and revelation in the faces of our brothers and sisters.
We seek to know the wistfulness of the very young and the very old, the wistfulness of people in all times of life.
We seek to understand the shyness behind arrogance, the fear behind pride, the tenderness behind clumsy strength, and the anguish behind cruelty.
All life flows into a great common life if we only open our eyes to our companions.
Let us worship, not in bowing down, not with closed eyes and stopped ears.
Let us worship with the opening of all windows of our beings, with the full outstretching of our spirits.
Life comes with singing and laughter, with tears and confiding, with a rising wave too great to be held in the mind and the heart and the body, to those who have fallen in love with life.
Let us worship and let us learn to love.
And I'm being really nice to you guys today. I'm using hymns that we're all familiar with. I didn't want to shock you 2 weeks in a row. Our first hymn this morning is We Sing Now Together, number 67.
Together our song of thanksgiving, rejoicing in good which the ages have brought, for life that enfolds us and helps and heals and holds us and leads beyond the goals which are Lead us to a healing, to mastery of all that drives us to war within ourselves and with others. May our deeds inscribe us in the book of life and blessing, righteousness, and peace. O source of peace, bless us with peace.
Our chalice lighting this morning. At times,
Our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us.
You may be seated, and at this time, please feel welcome to come forward and light candles of joy and concern.
For our community at large, those who protect and serve here and overseas, and for those who can't be with us here today.
Glenn, can you light one for Bob for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
This is for my nephew London Jackson. It looks like he's 17. He may have to have foot surgery and hip surgery from injuries played during sports. So, and this is for the whole Saxon family for continued comfort.
This is for my son Aaron, who started a job this week.
All right.
Hey. Today's his second day. He texted me this morning, all excited, he's going to work. It's part-time, but it's a job, and he's going out of the house. Yes. Let's hope it stays.
I know we haven't been here in a while, but this is for, there we go. In January, Maddie and I lost our friend and dear neighbor to cancer. He had been fighting for a while. He's going to be truly missed. He was really something special. And the current events across the nation, especially in Baltimore, being reminded of our past, the 60s and the 70s. I hate to see history repeat itself again. So for peace across the nation.
I light these candles in memory of my dearest mother and dearest sisters of this peace to the wonder world up in heaven. Thank you very much.
May we have our offering at this time?
off.
Joys and love we know and share, in love and beauty everywhere. Rejoice and truth that makes us free, and in the good that yet shall be.
Frank is going to do the flute for us this morning. Thank you very much. This morning, our reading from World Scripture is page 197. The Ideal Society. The ideal society is one where there is liberty, justice, kindness, and peace. Some of the verses of Scripture which teach these human rights and social values have stirred people of every age to the struggle for freedom and justice. The Scriptures give descriptions of an ideal society which is far removed from the decadent societies in the existing world. Some texts enunciate general principles. Others describe the ideal society as it was purportedly realized long ago in a golden age. Thus, the Chinese religions idealized the legendary days of the ancient sage kings. In Judaism and Christianity, conversely, the ideal society is to be realized in the future at the consummation of history with the establishment of the kingdom of heaven. From Judaism and Christianity, proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. From Judaism and Christianity, take away from me the noise of your songs, to the melody of your harps I will not listen, but let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. From Islam, lo, God enjoins justice and kindness and giving to kinsfolk, and forbids lewdness and abomination and wickedness. He exhorts you in order that you may take heed. From Judaism, the world stands upon three things: upon the law, upon worship, and upon showing kindness. From Islam, God said, O my servants, I have forbidden wickedness for myself and have made it forbidden among you. So do not do injustice to one another. From the African traditional religions, 200 cattle are under one stick, but 200 human beings are under 200 sticks. From Sikhism, now is the gracious Lord's ordinance promulgated. No one shall cause another pain or injury. All mankind shall live in peace together under a shield of administrative benevolence. From Zoroastrianism, in this world, may obedience triumph over disobedience. May peace triumph over discord. May generosity triumph over niggardliness. May love triumph over contempt. May the true spoken word triumph over the false spoken word. May truth triumph over falsehood. From Confucianism, when the right principles of man operate, the growth of good government is rapid. When the right principles of soil operate, the growth of vegetables is rapid. Indeed, government is comparable to a fast-growing plant. Therefore, the conduct of government depends upon men. The right men are obtained by the ruler's personal character. The cultivation of the person is to be done through the way. The cultivation of the way is to be done through benevolence. From the Unification Church, I exist for my family. My family exists for our society. Our society exists for our nation. Our nation exists for the world. All the world exists for God, and God exists for you and me, for all mankind. In this great circle of give and take, there is harmony, there is unity, there is an eternal process of increasing prosperity. Furthermore, since in this circuit all existence will fulfill its purpose of creation, there is abundance and profound joy. This is the kingdom of heaven, in which feelings of happiness overflow. And from Buddhism, when the 84,000 kings of the 84,000 cities of India are content with their own territories and with their own kingly state and their own hoards of treasure, they will not attack one another or raise mutual strife. They will gain their thrones by the due accumulation of the merit of their former deeds. They will be satisfied with their own royal state and will not destroy one another, nor show their mettle by laying waste whole provinces. When all the 84,000 kings of the 84,000 cities of India think of their mutual welfare and feel mutual affection and joy, contented in their own domains, India will be prosperous, well-fed, pleasant, and populous. Our next hymn this morning is number 112, Do You Hear? this morning is the group REM, and the song is called Losing My Religion. This morning, I am going to be talking about Pastor Rob Bell. Now, I don't know if anybody has read his books or knows much about him, but I happen to think he's wonderful. Rob Bell is a very progressive, revolutionary Christian pastor who for the past number of years has been shaking up the Christian world, in particular, fundamental Christianity. Now, he was featured in Time magazine in 2011, and this is Rob Bell, nice-looking young man. And the beginning here that the magazine has in here, which I really like, says, "Rogue Pastor, Rob Bell's argument about salvation and judgment has the evangelicals in a fury and a young generation rethinking Jesus." You know, I always like people who are honest, who are open, who are frank, and they are willing to talk about the things that need to be talked about, instead of just believing what they have been told over the years. And Rob Bell certainly fits the bill. He is willing to ask the questions that Christians for centuries have been afraid to ask. In his best-selling book, Love Wins, Bell starts with the statement, "I believe that Jesus' story is first and foremost about the love of God for every single one of us. It is a stunning, beautiful, expansive love, and it is for everyone, everywhere." And he follows with, "There is a growing number of us who have become acutely aware that Jesus' story has been hijacked by a number of other stories, stories that Jesus was not interested in telling because they had absolutely nothing to do with what he came here to do. The plot has been lost, and it is time to reclaim it." Bell says, "I have written this book for all those everywhere who have heard some version of the Jesus story that has caused their pulse to rise, their stomachs to churn, and their hearts to utter these resolute words. I would never be a part of that." Bell says, "You are not alone. There are millions of us." Bell recognizes the large number of people who have left Christian churches because of questions that the Christians have been unwilling to talk about. In this book, Bell welcomes people to an ongoing discussion about the story of Jesus in all of its vibrant, messy, and multi-voiced complexity. Now, one of the big issues that Rob Bell addresses is the fact that a staggering number of people have been taught that only a select few people go to heaven, which of course is a peaceful, joyous place. And in the meantime, the remainder of humanity is going to be in torment in hell forever, with no chance of anything better. It has been clearly communicated to many that this belief is a central truth of the Christian faith, and that to reject this is, in essence, to reject Jesus himself. Bell says, "This is misguided, toxic, and ultimately subverts the contagious spread of Jesus' message of love, peace, forgiveness, and joy that our world desperately needs to hear." This is a story from the book. Several years ago, Bell heard a woman tell a story about the funeral of her daughter's best friend, a high school student who was killed in a car accident. Her daughter was asked by a Christian if the young man who died was a Christian. And she replied, she said, no, he was an atheist. And the Christian said to her, so there is no hope for him. No hope. Is that the Christian message? No hope. Is that what Jesus offered the world? Now, the death of this high school student, 16, 17, okay, raises questions about what is called the age of accountability. Some Christians believe that up until a certain age, children are not held accountable for what they believe or who they believe in. And so if they die during these early years, they obviously go to heaven. However, after children reach a certain age, they are accountable for their beliefs. So if they haven't believed the correct thing, they're going to go to hell. The age of accountability is generally considered to be 12. Now, I've had 12-year-old children and I have 12-year-old grandchildren. Dingbats. You know, there's a reason they're not driving cars, they're not voting, whatever it is, because they are dingbats. Now, this belief raises other issues. One of them being the risk that each new life faces. Since a newborn baby might grow up not believing the right things and thereby risk going to hell forever, prematurely ending a child's life prior to 12 would actually be the loving thing to do, guaranteeing that that child ends up in heaven forever. Why take the risk? There are cases in history of Christian parents murdering their children for that reason, to save them. Is that the message? Some Christians believe, and often repeat, that the only thing that matters is whether or not you're going to heaven. Is that the message? Is that all that this life is about? Going somewhere else. If that's the gospel, the good news, if what Jesus does is get people someplace else, then the central message of Christianity has very little to do with this life, other than getting you what you need for the next life. Is that the best that God can do? So is it true that the kind of person you are ultimately doesn't matter at all, as long as you have said, prayed, and believed the right things? If you truly believed that, and you were surrounded by Christians who believed that, you wouldn't have any motivation to do anything about the present suffering in the world. All that would matter is going somewhere else. If Jesus' message is about how to get somewhere else, you could end up with a world in which millions of people are starving, thirsty, and poor. The earth is being exploited and polluted. Disease and despair are everywhere, and Christians aren't doing much about it. What they are doing is working on converting people, because they think that that's all that matters, even if it means strong-arming people, forcing them to change their beliefs, because they truly think that that's how they are going to save them. Isn't that what Christians have always claimed sets their religion apart from all the other religions? You don't have to do anything because God has already done it through Jesus. Now, let's talk about spiritual abuse. In Renee Altson's book, Stumbling Toward Faith, she begins with these words: I grew up in an abusive household. Much of my abuse was spiritual. And when I say spiritual, I do not mean New Age esoteric mumblings from half-Wiccan hippie parents. I mean that my father raped me while reciting the Lord's Prayer. I mean that my father molested me while singing Christian hymns. Is that who Jesus was? Is that the message? And which Jesus are we supposed to believe in? Think about the many people who only know about Christianity from what they have seen on TV, TV evangelists. So they end up assuming that Jesus is anti-science, anti-gay, standing out there telling people they're going to burn forever. Is that the message? This is another true story from the book. One woman in Rob Bell's church had invited her friend to come for a Sunday service. And this gentleman asked if the church was a Christian church. And she said, yes, it is. So the gentleman told her about his village in Eastern Europe, where the Christians rounded up all of the Muslims in town, herded them into a building, opened fire with machine guns, and killed every man, woman, and child. He explained that he was a Muslim, and he said, I would never, ever set foot in any Christian church. Is that the message? Is that who Jesus was? Rob Bell is right. The story of Jesus has been hijacked and changed and different things added in. So it isn't even often recognizable as the way it began. Now, Jesus, the enlightened master and teacher, and I happen to believe that he was a man, a human being who became enlightened. Everybody has the right to believe the way that works for them. That person that I believe in had a simple, powerful message. It was love, compassion, forgiveness, and non-violence. And he frequently talked about not judging other people, which is something Christian churches are notorious for. Forget about the speck in your brother's eye. Worry about the log in your own eye. Work on yourself. Whoever's without sin, cast the first stone. Well, guess what? Human beings were not created perfect. So all of us have sin. We all screw up. We all make mistakes. We all do things that we shouldn't. Bell asks these questions to encourage people to take a new look at basically the historical Jesus and the truth of his message. Now, does anybody have any questions? Do you have any comments? I'm sure some of you have had similar issues and questions. I know for me, my father at one point had said, I don't understand this. If human beings are created imperfect, then why does God get mad at us because we are imperfect and then punish us by sending us to hell forever when he's the one that created us and he created us this way? It doesn't make sense. It never did.
Right on to Rockville.
Yes. I'm going to be, you know how I like to lump things together? I'm kind of a lumper, okay? So the 17th and then the last Sunday of the month, the 17th I'm going to be talking about Rob Bell's perspective on heaven. And what he likes to do is to give people ideas. He wants people to think outside the box, think for themselves. And then the last Sunday in May, I will be doing Rob Bell's perspective on hell. The other 2 Sundays, Sam will be speaking, and he is very good as well. Right, Sam? Yes. Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with Rob Bell. I guess I need to be. I'm quite familiar with the works of Bishop
Sponge.
Spong.
Oh, he's
Spong.
another one. He wrote, yeah, the book, did you read Christianity Needs to Change or
Why
Die?
Christianity Must Change or Die. He's written at least 12 or 24 books.
Mm-hmm.
He, again, a Christian, but if you listen to him, it's just
Oh, yeah.
very similar. Also,
Oh, yeah.
if you're familiar with the works of another similar, and his story, his background is fascinating because he came from a fundamentalist Southern background. Bishop Carlton Pearson.
Oh, yeah. Carlton Pearson, no.
The Gospel of Inclusion was his first book.
Okay,
And-
yeah, I have not heard of him.
Yes.
He used to be the pastor of a fundamentalist megachurch
Mega.
down south, megachurch, and
Ah,
he had an epiphany one
Yeah.
day.
He started preaching about hell, and the church
Yeah.
ousted him.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, let me read something for you. Everybody else here has heard it because I've talked about it, and all I gotta do is find out where it is. These are my messy notes. Okay, where is it? Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, Pope John Paul II stated before a papal audience in Rome on July 28, 1999. And this is something that the Vatican quashed, which is why most people don't know about it. He said, hell does not exist as a place, but is a situation in which one finds oneself after freely and definitively withdrawing from God, the source of life, or whatever you consider that to be. The inextinguishable fire and burning oven are symbolic and metaphorical. The picture phrases are meant to indicate the complete frustration and vacuity or vacuum of a life without the source of life. Of course, he said God. He didn't believe in hell either. And the Vatican, there were a couple of reporters at this talk, and they had recorded it. And of course, the Vatican had a canary. They immediately, but the word got out. And most Catholics don't know this. They don't know this. Their own Pope didn't believe in it. Pope John Paul II. And I would imagine that Pope Francis is very much in line with that. He's not into all this fancy rigmarole, and he cares about the poor, and more than anything, he's just a very simple, good person. Now, our last hymn this morning, there's one little change. The last verse, instead of, now let me find it. instead of building up a world with the recording that Kristen has, it's going down the road.
Going down the road.
Yeah. Okay, please stand. This is this little light of mine, number 118. Are Rodbell's closing words in this book. May you experience this vast expanse of infinite, indestructible love that has been yours all along. May you discover that this love is as wide as the sky and as small as the cracks in your heart that no one else knows about. And may you know, deep in your bones, love wins.